My brain is my second favorite part of my body. Sherlock Holmes, from the Sherlock series. This phrase, spoken by the most brilliant detective in fiction, reflects the fascination and complexity of the human brain. After all, what is more intriguing than the organ that defines us? It is the center of our thoughts, emotions, memories, and even our identity. But at the same time, it is one of the greatest mysteries in science. Composed of around 86 billion neurons, connected by trillions of synapses, the human brain is so vast and intricate that, even with all modern technology, we are still far from fully understanding it. It is capable of creating works of art, solving complex problems, and even imagining the infinite. But it is also the same organ that confuses us with dreams, deceives us with illusions, and challenges us with questions like, who really are we? In pop culture, the brain is often portrayed as a perfect machine, like in Sherlock, where the detective's mind is a sharp, infallible tool. But is it really? What do we know about how it really works? And, more importantly, what don't we still know? Today, we'll delve into the mysteries of the human brain, exploring the latest scientific discoveries, the riddles that still challenge researchers, and the questions that may never be answered. After all, will we ever be able to completely unravel the last great mystery of science? Or will the brain, in its infinite complexity, always be one step ahead of ourselves? The human brain is, without a doubt, the most fascinating and enigmatic organ in the body. It weighs about 1.4 kilograms, but consumes 20% of the body's energy, even when we are at rest. He is responsible for everything we are, our thoughts, emotions, memories, abilities, and even our consciousness. But despite its importance, we still know surprisingly little about how it actually works. Why is it so complex? And what makes it so different from other animal brains? One of the biggest questions that intrigues scientists is how the human brain evolved to become so advanced. Compared to the brains of other primates, ours is disproportionately large relative to our body size. This expansion, known as is what allows us to perform complex tasks, such as language, abstract reasoning, and creativity. But why did the human brain evolve this way? And what were the costs of this evolution? After all, a bigger brain uses more energy and makes childbirth more difficult. So what made it worth it? Another fascinating mystery is how the brain creates consciousness. Consciousness, the feeling of being aware of yourself and the world around you, is something we all experience, but still can't fully explain. How can a set of cells and electrical impulses generate something as subjective and intangible as consciousness? This question, known as the hard problem of consciousness, is one of the greatest challenges in neuroscience and philosophy. Some scientists believe that consciousness is an emergent property of the brain, while others suggest that it may be something fundamental, like space and time. In addition to consciousness, the brain also intrigues us with its ability to store and retrieve memories. How can he store information for decades and access it in a matter of seconds? And why does he sometimes fail to remember something important or create false memories? Studies show that memories are not stored in a single place in the brain, but distributed across multiple regions, such as the hippocampus and cortex. However, we still don't fully understand how these regions work together to form and retrieve memories. Another fascinating aspect of the brain is its plasticity, the ability to adapt and change over time. Unlike a computer, which has fixed hardware, the human brain is incredibly flexible. It can reorganize your connections, create new neurons, and even compensate for damage. This plasticity is what allows us to learn new skills, recover from injuries, and adapt to change. But how does the brain manage to do this? And what are the limits of this capacity? Despite all the advances in neuroscience, there are still many unanswered questions. For example, how does the brain process emotions? We know that areas like the amygdala and prefrontal cortex play important roles, but we still don't fully understand how they interact to create feelings like joy, sadness, or fear. And why are some people more emotionally resilient than others? Is this determined by genetics, life experience, or a combination of both? Another mystery is how the human brain is capable of creating art, music, and literature. These forms of expression are unique to our species and reflect our ability to imagine, create, and communicate complex ideas. But why did the brain develop these abilities? Do they have an evolutionary purpose, or are they just a byproduct of other capabilities, such as language and abstract thought? And then there is the matter of dreams. Why do we dream, and what do dreams mean? For centuries, dreams have been interpreted as messages from the gods, manifestations of the unconscious, or simply random noise from the brain. Today, we know that dreams are related to REM, rapid eye movement, sleep, and that they play an important role in memory consolidation and emotional regulation. But we still don't fully understand why we dream or how the brain creates these vivid and often bizarre experiences. What makes the human brain even more intriguing is that it is both the object of study and the instrument of study. We are using the brain to try to understand the brain, a paradox that reflects its complexity and mystery. And while we've made great advances in neuroscience, we're still just scratching the surface. Each new discovery seems to raise more questions than answers, keeping the fascination with this extraordinary organ alive. The history of the study of the human brain is as fascinating as the organ itself. Since humanity's earliest records, the brain has been an object of curiosity, speculation, and reverence. However, our understanding of it evolved slowly, marked by revolutionary advances, and often by mistaken ideas that reflected the limitations of each era. In ancient times, the brain was not seen as the center of thought or consciousness. For the ancient Egyptians, for example, the heart was considered the most important organ in the body, responsible for intelligence, emotions, and the soul. The brain, on the other hand, was discarded during the mummification process, considered irrelevant to the afterlife. This view reflects a limited understanding of the role of the brain, but it also highlights how cultural beliefs influenced the perception of the human body. It was in ancient Greece that the first theories about the brain began to emerge. The philosopher Alcmaeon of Croton, in the 5th century BC, was one of the first to suggest that the brain was the center of thought and perception. However, this idea was not widely accepted at the time. Hippocrates, the father of medicine, also recognized the importance of the brain, stating that it was the organ responsible for emotions and behavior. On the other hand, Aristotle, one of the greatest thinkers of antiquity, believed that the heart was the center of intelligence, while the brain only served to cool the blood. Aristotle's view prevailed for centuries, until advances in anatomy and medicine began to challenge these ideas. During the Hellenistic period, the physician Herophilus of Chalcedon performed dissections on human bodies and identified the brain as the center of the nervous system. He also described the cerebral ventricles, fluid-filled cavities that he believed were responsible for transmitting information. Although his ideas were not completely accurate, they represented a significant advance in understanding the brain. With the decline of the Roman Empire and the advent of the Middle Ages, the study of the brain stagnated in Europe. However, in the Islamic world, doctors such as Avicenna continued to explore the workings of the brain and nervous system, drawing on Greek and Roman texts. His contributions helped preserve and expand knowledge about the brain, which would later be rediscovered during the Renaissance. The Renaissance marked a turning point in the study of the brain. With the revival of interest in anatomy, scientists, like Andreas Vesalius, began dissecting human bodies and documenting their findings in detail. Vesalius challenged many of the ideas of Galen, a Roman physician whose influence dominated medieval medicine, and highlighted the importance of the brain and central nervous system. His anatomical illustrations, published in De Humani Fabrica 1543, were a landmark in the history of medicine. In the 17th century, philosopher Descartes introduced a new perspective on the brain and mind. He proposed that the body and mind were separate entities, an idea known as Cartesian dualism. For Descartes, the brain was a machine that controlled the body, while the mind was an immaterial substance responsible for thought and consciousness. Although this view was widely debated, it profoundly influenced the study of the brain and mind for centuries to come. The 19th century brought significant advances in neuroscience, driven by new technologies and research methods. Scientists such as Franz Joseph Gall developed phrenology, a theory that suggested that different areas of the brain were responsible for different personality traits and abilities. Although phrenology was discredited, it paved the way for the idea that the brain is divided into specialized regions, a concept that is still valid today. Another important milestone was the discovery of neurons, the cells that make up the nervous system. Santiago Ramón y Cajal, Spanish neuroscientists, used staining techniques to visualize neurons and demonstrate that they were individual units connected by synapses. His discoveries revolutionized our understanding of the brain and laid the foundation for modern neuroscience. In the 20th century, the study of the brain advanced rapidly, driven by technologies such as electroencephalography, EEG, which allows recording the electrical activity of the brain, and functional magnetic resonance imaging, fMRI, which maps the areas of the brain activated during different tasks. These tools have allowed scientists to explore the brain in detail without the need for invasive interventions, opening new frontiers in research taught today. We are living in a golden age in neuroscience. Projects like the Human Connectome Project and the Brain Initiative are mapping the brain's connections at an unprecedented level, while advances in artificial intelligence and neurotechnology are allowing scientists to simulate and even interfere with how the brain works. However, despite these advances, we are still far from fully understanding the human brain. It remains one of the greatest mysteries in science, a universe inside our heads that we are still only beginning to explore. The human brain, for centuries, an almost impenetrable enigma, has begun to reveal its secrets thanks to a series of scientific and technological advances that have transformed neuroscience into one of the most dynamic and promising areas of modern science. Each discovery, each innovation, brought us a little closer to understanding the organ that defines who we are. But, at the same time, each advance brought new questions, keeping alive the fascination with this universe inside our heads. One of the greatest successes in neuroscience was the discovery of neurons, the cells that make up the nervous system, in the late 19th century. Santiago Ramón y Cajal, often called the father of modern neuroscience, used staining techniques to visualize neurons and demonstrate that they were individual units connected by synapses. This discovery revolutionized our understanding of the brain, showing that it was not a homogeneous mass, but an incredibly complex network of interconnected cells. In the 20th century, neuroscience took a giant leap forward with the development of technologies that made it possible to study the brain in action. Electroencephalography, IG, invented in the 1920s, was one of the first tools to record the brain's electrical activity. Although rudimentary by modern standards, the IG paved the way for the study of brain waves and their relationship to states such as sleep, wakefulness, and epilepsy. Decades later, the invention of functional magnetic resonance imaging, fMRI, revolutionized the field, allowing scientists to map the areas of the brain activated during different tasks. With fMRI, it was possible to observe the brain in real time while a person solved a mathematical problem, watched a movie, or even meditated. This technology has revealed that the brain is incredibly dynamic, with different regions working together in ways that were previously unimaginable. Another significant advance was the development of brain Stimulation techniques such as transcranial, magnetic stimulation (TMS), and deep electrical stimulation (DB). These technologies have not only allowed scientists to study the brain, but have also opened up new possibilities for treating conditions such as depression, Parkinson's, and epilepsy. DBS, for example, involves implanting electrodes in the brain to regulate its electrical activity, offering relief to patients who do not respond to other treatments. In addition to imaging and stimulation tools, genetics has also played a crucial role in modern neuroscience. The Human Genome Project, completed in 2003, paved the way for the study of genes that influence brain development and function. This has led to the identification of genes associated with conditions such as autism, schizophrenia, and Alzheimer's, offering new clues about their causes and possible treatments. In recent years, artificial intelligence (AI) and machine learning have transformed neuroscience in unimaginable ways. AI algorithms are being used to analyze large volumes of brain data, identify patterns, and even predict behavior. Additionally, AI is helping to create brain-computer interfaces (BCs), which allow people with paralysis to control devices with just their thoughts. Not only are these innovations changing lives, they are also challenging our ideas about what it means to be human. Another emerging field is the study of the connectome, the complete map of the brain's neural connections. Projects like the Human Connectome Project are mapping these connections at an unprecedented level, revealing how different regions of the brain communicate and work together. Although we are still far from mapping the complete connectome, advances in this field promise to revolutionize our understanding of the brain and conditions such as dementia and brain injuries. Neuroscience is also exploring the potential for brain regeneration. For a long time, it was believed that neurons could not regenerate. But recent research has shown that the brain has a surprising ability to create new neurons, a process known as neurogenesis. This discovery opened up new possibilities for treating brain injuries and neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's. Furthermore, neuroscience is beginning to unravel the mysteries of consciousness, one of the greatest challenges of modern science. Research into altered states of consciousness, such as sleep, dreams, and near-death experiences, is revealing clues about how the brain creates a sense of being, although we are still far from fully understanding consciousness. These studies are bringing us closer to answering one of humanity's deepest questions. Who are we? Despite these advances, the human brain remains a mystery in many ways. Each new discovery seems to raise more questions than answers, keeping the fascination with this extraordinary organ alive. But at the same time, these advances show us that we are just beginning to explore the brain's potential, and that the future of neuroscience is as vast as the brain itself. As fascinating and promising as the study of the human brain is, it is also a field fraught with controversy, ethical dilemmas, and even scandal. The complexity of the brain, combined with the limitations of technology and human ambitions, has created fertile ground for heated debates and, in some cases, errors that have shaken confidence in neuroscience. While advances are undeniable, they are often accompanied by challenges that remind us that we are still far from fully understanding the most complex organ in the human body. One of the biggest challenges in neuroscience is the question of consciousness. Despite decades of research, we still do not have a clear definition of what consciousness is or how it arises in the brain. This lack of clarity opens space for philosophical and scientific debates that often clash. Some researchers argue that consciousness is an emergent property of the brain, while others believe that it is something fundamental, like space and time. This divide not only hampers progress in the field, but also raises questions about the limits of science. Is consciousness something we can truly understand? Another point of controversy is the use of neuroimaging technologies, such as functional magnetic resonance imaging, fMRI. Although these tools have revolutionized the study of the brain, they also have their limitations. Studies have shown that fMRI can be influenced by external factors, such as the patient's movement or researchers' interpretation of the data. Furthermore, there is criticism that fMRI often oversimplifies the complexity of the brain, leading to exaggerated or inaccurate conclusions. For example, studies that claim to identify the area of the brain responsible for love, or the center of creativity, often ignore the fact that the brain is an interconnected network, not a collection of isolated modules. Ethics is also a central issue in neuroscience. As technologies advance, dilemmas arise about how they should be used. For example, brain-computer interfaces (BCIs) have the potential to transform lives by allowing people with paralysis to control devices with their thoughts. However, they also raise concerns about privacy and consent. Who should have access to a person's brain data? And what happens if this data is used to manipulate or control human behavior? Another example of an ethical dilemma is the use of brain stimulation to improve cognitive performance. While techniques like transcranial magnetic stimulation (TMS) have shown promising results in treating conditions like depression, they are also being explored as tools to increase memory, creativity, and concentration in healthy people. This raises questions about justice and equality. Will these technologies create a society where only the richest can enhance their brains? And what are the risks of using these technologies without fully understanding their long-term effects? In addition to ethical issues, neuroscience has also faced scandals that have undermined its credibility. A notable example is the case of Paolo Macchiarini, a surgeon and researcher who promised to revolutionize regenerative medicine with trachea transplants made from stem cells. Although his work was not directly related to the brain, it illustrates the dangers of exaggerating the results of scientific research. Macchiarini was accused of falsifying data and carrying out experimental procedures without proper consent, resulting in the deaths of several patients. This case highlighted the need for greater transparency and rigor in science, especially in fields as complex as neuroscience. Another example is the debate over the use of animals in brain research. Although animal studies have been fundamental to advances in neuroscience, they are also the target of criticism from animal rights groups. Experiments involving brain lesions or electrical stimulation in animals raise questions about suffering and ethics, especially when the results cannot always be directly applied to humans. Neuroscience also faces criticism for its tendency to promise more than it can deliver. Terms like marketing neuroscience or happiness neuroscience have become popular, but they often lack a solid scientific basis. This pop neuroscience can lead to misunderstandings about the brain and create unrealistic expectations about what science can achieve. For example, companies selling brain training devices often exaggerate their benefits, exploiting the public's fascination with the brain without offering concrete evidence of effectiveness. Despite these challenges, it is important to remember that neuroscience is a constantly evolving field. The errors and controversies do not diminish the importance of his discoveries, but rather highlight the complexity of the brain and the need to approach it with humility and rigor. After all, we are trying to understand the body that defines us, and, like any large undertaking, this requires patience, collaboration, and a willingness to learn from mistakes. In the end, the controversies and scandals surrounding neuroscience are not just obstacles. They are opportunities to reflect on how we conduct science and how we can do better. They remind us that no matter how far we advance, the human brain is still a profound mystery, one that challenges our assumptions and inspires us to keep exploring. The human brain is, at the same time, a wonder of nature and an enigma that defies our understanding. It is the organ that defines us, that allows us to create, love, dream, and question. And over the centuries, the study of the brain has not only helped us better understand who we are, but also shaped the way we see the world and our place in The impact of neuroscience goes far beyond laboratories and classrooms. It is present in our daily lives, in our decisions, and in our search for meaning. One of the greatest legacies of the study of the brain is the way it connects us to our shared humanity. Despite our cultural, linguistic, and individual differences, we all have brains that function in surprisingly similar ways. This understanding reminds us that, at the most fundamental level, we are all part of the same species, sharing the same capabilities and vulnerabilities. It also challenges us to be more empathetic, recognizing that others' experiences and emotions are as real as our own. At the same time, the study of the brain has shown us how unique we are as individuals. Each brain is shaped by a unique combination of genetics, life experiences, and environment, creating an infinite diversity of thoughts, emotions, and perspectives. This uniqueness is what makes humanity so rich and complex, and also what makes studying the brain so challenging. After all, how can we understand something that is, by definition, different for each person? Another fascinating aspect of the brain's legacy is its relationship to creativity and innovation. The human brain is the source of all of humanity's greatest achievements. From the pyramids of Egypt to space travel, from the works of Shakespeare to the symphonies of Beethoven. He is what allows us to imagine the impossible and turn it into reality. And by studying the brain, we are not only exploring what has already been done, but also opening up new possibilities for the future. But the brain's legacy isn't just about what it allows us to do. It's also about what it teaches us about ourselves. He reminds us that we are both incredibly powerful and deeply limited. On the one hand, the brain gives us the ability to solve complex problems, create beauty, and seek truth. On the other hand, it is also the source of our fears, prejudices, and failures. He shows us that no matter how far we advance, there will always be something more to learn about the world, about others, and about ourselves. The study of the brain also has profound implications for ethics and philosophy. As we learn more about how the brain works, we are forced to confront difficult questions about free will, identity, and morality. If our thoughts and actions are determined by brain processes, what does this mean for our idea of personal responsibility? And if we can manipulate the brain to change behaviors or emotions, how far should we go? These questions have no easy answers, but they are essential to understanding the impact of neuroscience on society. Furthermore, studying the brain challenges us to think about the future of humanity. With advances in artificial intelligence, brain-computer interfaces, and neurotechnology, we are entering an era in which the boundaries between the natural and the artificial, between the human and the non-human, are becoming increasingly blurred. These innovations have the potential to transform our lives in unimaginable ways, but they also raise questions about what it means to be human. Could it be that, by expanding the brain's capabilities, we are approaching a new stage of evolution? Or are we moving away from our essence? In the end, the brain's legacy is, above all, a reminder of our curiosity and resilience as a species. He shows us that, no matter how complex the challenges, we have the ability to face them with creativity, courage, and determination. He inspires us to keep exploring, questioning, and learning, not just about the brain, but about everything it allows us to imagine. And so the human brain remains, not just as a physical organ, but as a symbol of who we are and what we can be. It is, at the same time, the last great mystery of science and the key to unlocking all other mysteries. And as we continue to explore it, perhaps the biggest lesson is this: the true power of the brain lies not just in its complexity, but in its ability to connect us to each other, to the world, and to ourselves.